Okay, folks, we're going to get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Mihevik, and today I am acting as a York University professor in facilitating today's class. Welcome to CivicLabTO curriculum. That's what the City of Toronto calls it. At York, we call it Geography 3620. And U of T has another name for the course, and George Brown has another name for the course. But here at City Hall, it's called CivicLabTO curriculum. And the focus of today is the city's strategic priorities and the role of local government. Also, a big welcome to City Hall, the City Hall of the City of Toronto, my City Hall, your City Hall, our City Hall. This is the so-called scene of the crime, where some of the big decisions that have been made in the last little while and will be made in future generations, affecting deeply the lives of all of us. So if you are a Humber College student, you're about to get a light rail. Guess where that discussion, conversation, and advocacy started? Right here. If you are a George Brown College and you're on the waterfront, decisions were made about 20 years ago to have that place dedicated, or one building there dedicated to George Brown to help revitalize the waterfront. And now there's a wonderful learning center there for Humber students. If you're a York University student and you came here by subway from York University, that subway extension, oh, that was the fruit of a lot of conversation and debate over many, many years. And finally, the subway got built, and now it's finished. And that's why you came here. And it didn't take you an hour and a half, but it only took you 40 minutes. If you notice, no one here is smoking. Well, guess what? The smoking bylaws that govern many cities across Canada, and where you can smoke, where you can't smoke in public places, a lot of those conversations happened in this room and then were modeled by other cities across the country. So this is a very special place. And I think just for a second, it's good to breathe that in and say, oh, okay, this is it. This is the place that we are. We're going to start with a land acknowledgement as well. As this meeting is both in person and virtual, and we are not all gathered in the same place, I recognize that this land acknowledgement may not be for the territory that you're currently on. We ask that if this is the case, that you acknowledge the traditional territory you are on and the current treaty holders. For those of us in Toronto, I'd like to acknowledge that the land we are on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. One of the ways that I take that in is whenever I come off of the subway, I try to go to the Spirit Garden and just spend 15 seconds there. And I would advise that if you're anywhere near City Hall, just go there. It's on the southwest side of Nathan Phillips Square. It truly is a special place, and I would recommend that to you as part of your journey in this Truth and Reconciliation era. Okay, I'm going to describe today's class, but we have a very, very special guest here today, and that is Toronto's dear Mayor, Olivia Chow. And I'll introduce her just a little bit, Madam Mayor. Olivia, Mayor Chow, I call her Olivia. She sat right there, and I sat right there for about a decade, I think, together. But some of her background: she was a trustee, started in 1985, and you might find a reflection of some of the journey that you want to take in this story. Her parents were immigrants to this city. She was elected City Metro Councillor in 1991 and then City Councillor in 1997 when the new city was formed. She studied philosophy and religious studies at University of Toronto. Shout out to University of Toronto students. And then she studied also fine art at OCAD. She became mayor a couple of years ago, and is the leader of this city in all things urban and small p political and large p political. Mayor Chow, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Council Chamber. What's the Council Chamber? What do you do here? We'll get to that in a minute. You gave me an hour. You know, I used to lecture. I used to teach. So anyway, welcome to City Council Chamber here. How many of you want to build more affordable housing? Oh, pretty good. How many of you want TDC to be more reliable? Ah, yes, yes, yes. And what about safety? How many of you want to make sure that our young people, especially teenagers, don't pick up a gun in the first place so they get something that they find purpose in life and not go around, maybe a few of them, shooting at each other? How many of you want more safety in the street? No, not bad. Okay, I got it. All right. So let's use affordable housing. This lab, Civic Lab, is giving you the knowledge on how you want to get what you believe in, getting it done, okay? What is the pathway for that decision? Let's use affordable housing as an example, okay? You have an idea, and there's a plot of land nearby. You keep walking, and that building is empty. You thought, we have a housing crisis. How am I going to get that piece of land, or let's say a parking lot, or that empty building? How do I turn that into affordable housing? Well, maybe that's where City Hall comes in. You can then find out, all right, if it's a parking lot that no one used much, maybe, then, who's the owner of it? Can the city, if it's city land, can the city build on it? How does the city build on it? Who makes the decision? How do they get the funding? How do we work with home builders so we can build more homes? All of that you're going to find out, hopefully, today, right? And then, is it going to be mixed income? Because building more homes is good, but it needs to be building more homes that people can afford. So if the city is trying to make a decision, if we give some incentives for people to build, should it be 5% of the building should be affordable? 10%? 20%? 30%? What do you think? Here, councilors get to put up their hands, like the staff will make a recommendation based on financial means, and neighborhoods, policies, how to integrate folks together in a complete neighborhood so that people don't just live there, but there's a child care center and parks and recreation centers and all of those things, libraries that make a neighborhood complete, and shops. Okay? Then here at Council Chamber, councils get to say, yeah, I think this building could be 4-story, 6-story, 12-story, 30-story, whoa, and 5% affordable, maybe 20%, 30% affordable, and therefore we might need to spend $5 million, $10 million, $20 million, $30 million to make that happen. Hey, who are you going to ask that for money? Where does the money come from? All of that you're going to find out. Maybe not just today, okay? So it's really incredibly important on whether it's where your garbage is going to go to, because there's a tour going on later on, not for all of you, but it's happening with the media. And what about speed? What about potholes, safety, policing, TTC, housing? My God, how tall is the building? How many parks there should be? Should libraries open more hours? Yes. Should we have money to go to so that kids don't get hungry in school? All of that, the decision come at some of the seats you're sitting in. Okay? Fascinating. Maybe one of you want to be running for mayor sometime. The best policies, the best practices come from 3 different directions coming together. People, the 43,000 people working for the City of Toronto, represented by Paul Johnson. He's the big boss. And so that's the civil servant. We call them public service, okay? Public servants, they serve the public. And then there's these politicians, me, former Councillor Joe Mahavik, and other councillors. That's the political arm. And then there's the public, you, all of you, right? And many others. The 3.2 million people that is in the City of Toronto. So the best policies and best public service come from the political, the elected folks, bringing together the public and the public servants so that the policy, when they are implemented on the streets of Toronto, represents the best ideas from the public and the best talents from the public servants. So that's the role of your political elected people, councillors and the mayor. It's a tripartite thing. The more the public is involved, the more they understand what's happening, the more open City Hall is, the better results we get. I want to leave you with that thought. So have a great day today, learn lots, ask lots of questions, and enjoy. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, you get
You know what? If you become mayor, I guess you get this mic. And Paul Johnson and staff will use this mic later on. So if you want to be mayor, this is the mic you get. Great. Thanks for those inspiring words. So let's talk about today's class and the 6 classes that are before us. To give a brief description, CivicLab's curriculum is presented by the Strategic Partnership Office, which is one of the offices under the city manager, in collaboration with 8. There are 4 community colleges in Toronto and 4 universities in Toronto. All 8 institutions have come together and are represented here. Civic leaders from the city and the higher education institutions are forging a path together of partnership and innovation between these 2 different sectors. Mayor Chow was actually pushing this 10 years ago. I was part of meetings with her when she wasn't a mayor, trying to encourage this relationship between academia and urban institutions like City Hall. So today's work is part of a framework to facilitate the city and academic collaboration on multidisciplinary research projects to inform public policy and programs and ongoing relationships between the 2 institutions, to develop all kinds of projects in both sectors, both the education sector and in the public sector. We are all thrilled to be hosting this year's CivicLabTO curriculum in our City Council chambers. This is a very special learning place to be in, and we are thrilled to be all working together on this. A tremendous amount of planning has gone into this, and I want to recognize Jeff Moore. Where is he? Right there. Just wave your hand so everyone sees. He's the magic maker, the rainmaker within the city manager's office that has led this initiative at that end. And of course, he has secured, City Hall has secured an amazing lineup of very, very senior staff that I'll introduce in a second. Thank you to all the partners who have made this possible. Just some business items before we get going. Housekeeping. Today's session is being recorded, and participants are asked not to share any personal information if you are going to ask a question or anything of the sort. The session will be available on the CivicLabTO website. And the connection will be made available from your instructor in the near future. If you're joining us in person in the council chambers, welcome, but please note we ask you to avoid opening the virtual class if you are here. It just screws up the computers. The washrooms are located down the hall on the other side of this of a little pathway there. There will be time for questions and answers towards the end of today's event. If you are joining the session virtually online and would like to submit a question during the session, please enter it in the Q&A at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you are joining us in person and are sitting at the council chambers, you will be invited, of course, to ask a question. You press the mic, stand up, and then press the mic when you're finished your question. Just raise your hand, and we have a roving person here who will help facilitate that. Everyone joining us virtually and in person, everyone joining us virtually will be muted during the event. If you're in council chambers and have joined the WebEx meeting, please mute your devices as soon as possible. At the end of the class, you're going to be invited to fill out a survey for those who haven't filled them out in your classes back in your home institutions. And just in case you're thinking of leaving afterwards, this is for the university students only because there are some joint collaboration essays that are required. There will be a reception upstairs here, upstairs there. You go to the back and we will help facilitate that. I'll speak more on that a little later on. Okay, so just to get going, because we're a little bit behind, I'm going to invite three speakers here. Paul Johnson, who you heard is the Big Cheese. He's the city manager for the 43,000 employees that are here at the city. He will be followed by John Elvidge, who is the city clerk, who is responsible for making sure all the different pieces run smoothly and in an accountable format. And Mohammed Shareh, who is the executive director of social development here at the city. Okay, over to you, CEO, city manager, Paul Johnson. Let's give him a little warm applause.
Well, thanks so much, Joe, and thanks for the invitation, and thanks to all of you for the invitation to be part of this session. It's really a pleasure to be here. And I think it is, the microphones are a bit symbolic. The mayor's microphone, a little more flashy than the public service microphone. And that's kind of the way it is. You know, the mayor and I, as I was getting ready to come down here this morning, had a chat because she is going right from this event to a press conference where she has to speak on a number of issues, and her and I just needed to chat a little bit about some of the information she could share. And again, the mayor, councilors out in front of issues, speaking on behalf of the electorate and the public service, they're always to support with what's happening from a detail perspective sometimes, and also there to receive information and go and action some of the things that come out of council. We'll talk about that in just a second. It's great to see so many institutions represented. I've been to every single one of these post-secondary institutions, and I've been booed at every single one of them because I'm a basketball official, and I've refereed university and college basketball over the years. Every one of your institutions has not welcomed me very politely, but I assume today will be a little bit different, Joe. However, if you just want to stand up and say you're horrible, I don't listen to that stuff because 36 years as a basketball official just goes in one ear and out the other. And as everybody around the city of Toronto knows, I do always carry a whistle with me. So if you get really out of control, I have a way of dealing with you as well. But all joking aside, it is great to have so many post-secondary institutions doing such amazing work, and the students, not only your work and your endeavors on campus, but what happens after those years at these institutions is great. And I'm here to say, think about the city of Toronto as a career choice, as a place for you to come. So I have a long history of work in the not-for-profit sector, private sector, and the public sector, both for the city of Hamilton and the public sector, as well as now the city of Toronto. In the public sector world, I've done a whole bunch of things. I've built big infrastructure projects like light rail transit in Hamilton. I've had the opportunity to do neighborhood development work. I've led departments with multi-levels of service. I've been involved in emergency planning through the pandemic as the head of the Emergency Operations Center in Hamilton. And here in Toronto, lead the largest municipality in Canada, the fourth largest in North America, and all of the opportunities and challenges that come with that. But it is also some of the other experiences that I've had that I bring here, and that's what I say to every new employee. You bring such a richness beyond the task that you'll be performing here at the City of Hamilton, or the City of Toronto, and when I was with the City of Hamilton. And you bring those things here, and they make up who you are beyond the tasks that we do. So I always smile a little bit because, as you may know, homelessness, a big issue in Toronto, and people say, you know, these encampments that came after the pandemic, what are we doing about those? And I smile because in 1993, when I was working just out of university at a nonprofit organization in Hamilton, I was working in outreach, in encampments, dealing with many of the same issues. Unfortunately, homelessness is not a new issue. Thankfully, we have better and better services than we did in 1993. But I bring a bit of that knowledge and experience, not what I do as a city manager each day. I don't do outreach anymore, but to have those background experiences is really important. So consider the City of Toronto as you're looking at your career path. My job today is to share a little bit about what it is we do here on a day-by-day basis. And so if we buzz through some slides here and we'll get to some of the real good conversation. The mayor's kind of shared this. There are about 3.2 million people at last count here at the City of Toronto. We are one of the fastest growing cities in North America and continue to be that way. So it's a bit like that counter that just keeps going up and up and up. And it brings with it great opportunities, great diversity. It also brings with it some challenges that we have to address, which the mayor also touched on a little bit. We are governed by a council of 25 councillors and our mayor, who you met. And those councillors represent geographies across the city. They represent a large number of people. City council used to be much bigger. John will remember those days where many more people filled these seats. Now it's 25 ward councillors, and they can represent up to about 170,000 people, depending on their ward. Some are a little smaller, but they're all large numbers of people that they represent. And they set direction and policy. They reflect on how we deliver our services, and they give us the direction on a day-to-day basis. And that is what we do as the Toronto Public Service, as the mayor talked about. And the magic of that is when we can work really well together and come up with solutions. Doesn't mean we always agree. Doesn't mean that stuff that happens in this chamber is always pleasant and kind. But together, we try and get to a better place. And you will see sometimes on television councillors or maybe the mayor standing up, and there's lots of energy and vim and vigor in the comments. But I'm here to tell you today that just like question period at a provincial or federal level, some of what happens here in the eyes and in front of the media are more of the show of what goes on and not really the day-to-day activity that happens. There's a very collaborative relationship between staff and the elected officials as we try and tackle the small and big issues that go on each and every day. Small issues of we have an event going on at a space in a certain part of the city, and boy, we could really just use a little bit of the grass needs to be cut because we've got a group coming in, and can that happen, you know, on Tuesday instead of Thursday when it normally occurs, and we figure out ways to solve that. Right through to how will we build more housing? How will we determine the tax that each and every property owner will pay each year? How will we assess some of the fees? How will we make sure the services that you rely on are there? So big and small, we have this relationship that isn't always pleasant, that is tense, that involves people that have very different opinions. So we think we bring forward the best advice, and man, it'd be great if they all just applauded and said, that's the best report I've ever read in my entire life. Passed, 26-0. Rarely happens. Sometimes they amend our recommendations as staff. They change it a little bit here and there. They make it more reflective of the voices they hear as elected officials. Very few times do they outright just defeat it. Sometimes they accept it, rarely by a unanimous vote on most major issues, but they accept it. And sometimes they send it back for more work. So all sorts of things can happen once our work comes here. But what is always there, although it may not seem it sometimes when you see the public display, is a respect for the work we bring forward. What do 43,000 people do every day here at the City of Toronto as the public service? A whole bunch of people are delivering services. When you dial 911, we have thousands of people in police, fire, and paramedics who will respond to those calls each and every day. So they're out there delivering. We have lots of people that are thinking about how we can do better in our services and developing the policies and the supports that help us. That can be everything from how we will reduce costs in our recreation programs to make them more accessible for folks, through to how will we create incentive programs to build affordable housing. And those are a lot of the things that land here at Council. How will we perhaps entertain a new bylaw that will protect Torontonians, all of those things. And that interplay that occurs happens behind the scenes as we socialize the ideas that we have. It happens in public here as we debate, they debate, and we answer questions often around the reports that we bring forward. And, you know, it's uncomfortable when somebody says, well, I've read this report and I don't agree with it at all. I don't know what you're trying to do to our community. We'd all rather somebody stands up and says, as I mentioned, you know, this is the best thing I've ever read. Thank you for your work. But we have to be realistic that bringing together 26 elected officials rarely means you're going to bring together 26 people who think exactly the same, because people in Toronto don't think exactly the same way. So we do have to, you know, go back and forth a little bit. Sometimes we're bruised a little bit by the comments that happen. We do really good work. We're professionals in our field, and somebody says it's terrible. Doesn't feel great. But it's an awful lot like assignments. It's an awful lot like student work, isn't it? You think you've done the best possible job, and somebody says, nah, it's a little bit, you know, maybe some work to do here. The mark isn't exactly what you had hoped at the end of the day. We reflect on that. We try and get better. And then also, we have to realize this is democracy. The goal is to get things moving through, and sometimes those votes can be pretty close. John has to make sure that he adds it up correctly, and sometimes those votes aren't very close at all. But the idea here is to move things along, and that's a little bit of the way we work together. If we go on to the public service side, I want you to memorize this chart. There's a test. This is 60% of your mark. You have to be able to identify everybody that's in these boxes. You do not. This simply shows that we, as 43,000 people, use WebEx. Behind the WebEx symbol is our organizational chart at the highest level. It shows how we're organized in our work. We do have some what we call service areas. They're clusters of work that make sense to be together. Infrastructure services sits together. Our community services sit together. You know, our corporate services, things like IT and our fleet and all those types of things, facilities, they sit together because they support the whole organization. And we have leaders across that. You see where I sit. I sit right under council because I'm the closest thing you get to a politician who isn't a politician. I have to work with council every day, and then I have to translate that and work with the public service every day so we get things moving along. I am not a politician, but work very closely with that realm. I do not want you to take away from this chart that this denotes importance in the organization. I say this to our employees every day, and I mean it. It is not a cliche, and it's not a line. The most important person in the city of Toronto is whoever is engaging in the work they do, because today, the child who's learning to swim in one of our city pools does not care one lick, nor do their parents or caregivers care one lick who the city manager is. They care who the lifeguard is or the instructor that's teaching their child to swim. The person that's coming in today for their business license, which will allow them to open for business and make money and take care of themselves and their family, does not care who one of the deputy city managers are or the division heads for all these departments are. They care about the person that is processing their application and is going to say yes. We're going to make sure that we can get to yes so that they can start to earn a living in this city. So we have 43,000 people who are the most important people on a day-by-day basis. Some days I have a role that our 43,000 folks hope I play and do exceptionally well, and I every day hope the other 43,000 people do their job really well. That's how we hang together. So let's move on to the next slide. That's the 43,000 folks that actually flow up through that organizational chart. Then we have a whole bunch of things we call agency boards, commissions, corporations, that we have that do work on our behalf that are part of Team Toronto, as I call them. Some are very large. The Toronto Transit Commission is very large. Its budget and staffing is bigger than most municipalities in the province of Ontario. And it's an agency or a corporation of our, Toronto Community Housing would be another example, the largest social housing provider in Canada. Some are small. We have small community centers that are governed by a board of directors as a nonprofit. We have arena boards that operate arenas in this city who are, outside of the purview. They don't report directly to me, but they do have a relationship with council, and we call ourselves Team Toronto because I can tell you that it is not as though I don't worry about our transit and the TTC on a daily basis. I do. It's not that I don't talk to them on a daily basis. I do. But in a structural way, they also have a board that they report to. So it's just a little bit of way we help on governance. And some of it is practical. Some of these things are very large, doing very big work that would be almost impossible to simply absorb into the broader public service. And some of it's a bit historical about some of these programs that are part of the city fabric of delivery, but are just done in a little bit of a different way. That'd be more in line with some of these, issues. So when we talk about our structure from a people perspective, I, on a daily basis, work with this team. This is my crew, and we work together to move the organization forward. Some of them are what we call deputy city managers, because in this municipality, unlike smaller municipalities, there is no way that one city manager could oversee all of the work that's happening. We have to have a bit of a team approach to that. We, of course, have a chief financial officer and treasurer who worries every day about the $19 billion operating budget and the $60 billion capital budget that we manage. And you can see the other folks that are part of the decision-making of the city. When we get together, we talk about the things that are of importance to the entire city. They could be large political issues that we're trying to deal with. They could be staff-related issues that affect every one of our employees, and we try and move those forward. The senior leadership team is not a thing. We don't have any special powers on us. It's a group of people that represent the ability to think about how we can do the best for the city, and then through our leadership skills, encourage all of our employees to row in the same direction from a priority perspective, which is where I want to go next. We have a bit of a rubric here that we use in terms of how we can be very effective as a public service, and you see it here. Some of it is about our own performance. Each one of us, including myself, on an annual basis sets objectives, and we have a performance evaluation system that talks about how are you doing as an employee of the City of Toronto. And I go through mine every year. The mayor is kind of delegated by council to be the person that I work with on my performance, and then every employee at the city has the same thing happen. But we also have this corporate priorities, and some people may think, geez, the City of Toronto delivers everything from safe water to paramedics to recreation to childcare. Like, how do you ever have a priority of where you're headed? Well, believe it or not, we do, and there's only 6 things that we say are our key priorities for the city. And if we move to the next slide, you see what they are. There are 4 things that are external facing that we as a Toronto Public Service, as a council, have said we want to advance. Now I get it. On a day-by-day basis, there are 1,000 tasks that we're doing. We do need today to make sure that the pH level and the chlorine level in our pools is accurate. We do need today to make sure that we collected garbage from the parts of the city that this is their garbage day. We do all that. But we as a collective team are working on these things. First and foremost is housing. But it's hard. It's easy to say we want to build more housing and make it affordable. You know how expensive it is? Do you know how little money we have? Well, you probably read about that in the paper for sure. In fact, an increase of 1% on property tax only generates $49 million in revenue. You may say only $49 million. It's not chump change, I get. But when you're trying to build affordable housing, $49 million will get you the pipes in the ground and not much more. So we have a challenge of working with other orders of government to make sure that this can occur. And that means provincial and federal money. So housing is a key priority, but it's something we need to work in partnership. So I spend a ton of time, and the mayor does too. She works the political angles, I work the staff angles at the province and the federal government to say, how can we co-invest to build more housing? And I'll say that Toronto is doing a better job than most municipalities in terms of building in a very tough environment. We care very much about our neighborhoods. and investing in neighborhoods, because as much as we talk about Toronto as this nice, great big city, really life is a lot of the quality of life happens in your neighborhoods. What is the quality of the recreation center that's nearby, the parks and open spaces that we have, the roads that people travel on, the special support services that are there when you need them in your neighborhoods? We care about that, and we want to invest in neighborhoods and continue to invest in people's well-being. We need to get people around this city, and yes, transit is a key priority. The only way that we're really going to move people effectively is through transit. But the other piece we have to worry about is how we move cars, how we move people, how we move bikes, how we move goods, all in a very, constrained environment. So you think about it, every day there's a road somewhere in this city that everybody is competing for space. The delivery people want more space for deliveries to keep businesses going and make sure they can move their goods. Cars want to get to places because as much as we would like everybody to be on transit, not possible, or for some people, not what they want to do. We need to make sure that people that want to cycle can do it safely. We want to make sure that there's pedestrian walkways. And I live on Yonge Street, and, there's a ton of pedestrians. We could use even wider sidewalks on Yonge Street. They're already pretty wide to begin with. So we've got all these competing forces. And imagine being in my position and being in the position of council, who hear from cycling community, it's all about cycling. They hear from drivers, it's all about the cars. They hear from industry, it's all about our goods getting here fast and easy. You hear about transit, it's all about priority bus lanes and making sure people can move on transit well. And you know what the answer to all of that is? Yes, yes, yes. And then we have to figure out how to balance that. So that's the practical reality of moving these forward. We can all nod and say, these are great priorities. You know what makes me have as little hair as I do is actually figuring out how to make it happen. And that's what our folks do each and every day. The last, of course, is in climate change and building resilience. We experience more extreme weather, whether it's flooding, whether it's our winters are different, right? We don't seem to get the same long, drawn-out winters, but when we get a wallop, and we need to deal with it, and everything in between. This summer has been an incredibly hot summer. We actually had to open our pools earlier than we really had our lifeguards because they were still all in school. All those things that we're dealing with on a climate change perspective. The good news is that Toronto is a leader in its climate adaptation work. We have more to do, and of course, Toronto can't do it alone. We are one small part of a bigger piece. From an internal-looking piece, we think about two things each and every day. We must be financially sustainable. One little fun fact is municipalities cannot run a deficit. Provinces and federal government can. We cannot. Every year, our budget must balance from an operating perspective. So $19 billion of money coming in, money coming out must balance. And this year we have we usually have a little surplus. And people look at the surplus sometimes in our variance report and go, oh my goodness, you're ripping us off because you have a surplus of $90 million. We didn't need to raise our taxes that much. And I say, that surplus of $90 million is on a budget of $19 billion. So pull out your calculators. I don't doubt you carry physical calculators with you, but go on your app and get the calculator app out and figure out the percentage of 90 million on 19 billion, and you'll say to yourself, wow, you are really close to the wire of being balanced, aren't you, Paul? And the answer is yes, but that's what we have to do. We also have to make sure that we, year over year, have the ability to run the services and develop the services that we have. And so we're always thinking about how to be more sustainable on that and keep our taxes reasonable. And then the final piece is a well-run city. We want to be very effective in what we deliver. We want our performance to be very high, and we want the moments where we screw up to be as few as is humanly possible. I say every day, if you're expecting perfection from the city of Toronto, you will be disappointed each and every day. But if you want really high quality service and a philosophy of always trying to get better, then you can be very proud of the city of Toronto. Because perfection is not something we can ever achieve, but we can always get better. And I could tell story after story after story, but I need to close, about how we're doing things in better ways. And the reality is that is what I talk a lot about to our staff each and every day. Love what you're doing. How are you thinking about how to do it better? And yesterday, I just gave out 15 awards to teams across the city who are doing innovative work. They're called the City Manager Awards. And really what it is a highlight of everything from our partnership programs that delivered something like the Spirit Garden that you heard about. Places in our organization, in Toronto Water, for instance, there was a project that not only reduced our greenhouse gas emissions, it saves us $600,000 a year by generating some energy from a facility that we have to operate anyways. All these things that we're doing that are so innovative each and every day are the reality of the people that I get to work with. And I know sometimes what we read about is everything that's going wrong. There's a garbage can that's overflowing. Well, we have 90,000 garbage cans that we have to deal with every single day. So you know what? Maybe one of them is going to be overflowing every day. But we work really hard to not do that. We now have electronic sensors in some of our high-use garbage cans, so we actually know when they're getting full. So we can deploy people before they're overflowing. That's the innovation that we come to work with every day, regardless of the service we provide. So I love this job. It is the best job in the world. Some people will debate me. Maybe John will debate me. But I think I have the best job in the world. And I love telling people a little bit about what we do. Can't wait for a few questions along the way. And as I say, you know, as you're thinking about what you're going to do to contribute to this community or any community, think about the work of municipalities. We'd love to have you on Team Toronto. All right. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Paul. City Manager, you may be thinking of a question that's something that twigged in your mind, and there will be an opportunity after the next two speakers to get back to Paul and ask that question. Next on our roster is John Elvidge, who is City of Toronto City Clerk. Over to you, John.
Okay, thank you, Joe. It's hard for me not to call you counselor after all these years, but I also am glad to be here and to tell you a little bit about the work that we do in the city clerk's office, and I want to I'll tell you also a little bit about some of the issues that that we're facing at the moment. So, first of all, welcome to the council chamber. You've already been welcome, but I wanted to say that to you as well. What happens in this room matters. You've heard from Joe about some of the debates that have happened here in the now 65 years the chamber has been in operation. You mentioned the no smoking bylaw. That's, to me, is always a great one. But another one that's similar to that is in this chamber, the very first ban on cosmetic pesticides was passed in this chamber. And that then became adopted by other municipalities, just like the smoking bylaw. And then one day the province came along and said, well, we better level the playing field and make that a rule for the whole province, right? But I always say, and just a little plug for a career in the Toronto Public Service, when you're in the largest municipality in Canada, I sometimes think about this as the largest laboratory for public service innovation in the country. Good ideas are born here. Good ideas are carried out here because we are the size that we are as a public service. I do encourage, like my colleagues, I encourage you to think about a career in municipal public service. Happy International Day of Democracy. It was on Monday. So what better way to celebrate it than coming to the chamber here and learning a little bit about how council and the city operates. Paul talked about the 45,000 people that are here. I just want to say one last little plug for a career here. In August, I celebrated my 35th year here, which that's a long time. But I've had 3 careers here. I started here as a cultural affairs officer in my first tour of duty, and then I worked in the city manager's office, where I worked on a bunch of interesting files like intergovernmental relations and ethics and integrity. And then I've had a career in the city clerk's office as well. So there are a lot of people who work here in the Toronto Public Service who have been able to fashion a career, or 3 or 4 careers, but within the same organization and the same employer. So I'm a big advocate for that. Now, they give me a desk upstairs, but when council meets, this is my office. And this here is my desk, which is why I'm sitting there today. And I'll talk a little bit about what goes on here in a second. Maybe we'll go to the first slide. And Start by telling you that the city clerk is one of the original jobs in the city. Back in 1834, when the city was incorporated, there was a clerk and a treasurer. Those were the two key jobs. The treasurer was called the chamberlain. I think Steve should adopt that title, Paul. But it's a position that's been around since 1834, and as a result, in the almost 200 years, the clerk has collected a wide range of duties and responsibilities. In provincial law, the clerk is assigned something like 350 duties in 60 different pieces of legislation. And that's really just, I consider it like a glacial collection for 200 years. Province says, somebody needs to do this, who are we going to give it to? We'll let the clerk do it. And that has accumulated to this day. The clerk is appointed by council, so it is definitely a statutory position, we call that council appoints, not the mayor, not the city manager, but council as a whole, acting as a body. It's a neutral role and a nonpartisan role. We like to say in our office that a bad day for us is when we make the news on some sort of issue, because that's actually not our role. It's not our role to have opinions, although we all do privately, but in our professional capacity, it's not our job to have opinions about what's right or what's wrong, because we're trying to support and facilitate the democratic process here. And the weird thing about the job is there's certain things that the clerk's office carries out independently of the city. So for example, I'm the chief electoral officer for municipal elections. And in that regard, the duties are carried out independent of council, because of course council members are also candidates. So the way the legislation is structured in Ontario is that there's a line between what council can control, as with their interests as candidates in an election, versus what's in the Elections Act. Another duty that my staff and I carry out is under something called the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Decisions about what information gets released to the public and how the public can exercise their rights to access information are vested in our office, and we carry out the roles. The very specific roles are in that act. And then the last thing, a very strange role, I'm the division registrar, what it's called in Ontario law, for the Vital Statistics Act. So I have a team of people that register deaths, issue burial permits, and issue marriage licenses. Again, so you can see over the 200 years, all these various things put in the clerk's job jar. Next slide. Now, one way I like to explain what we do, and the people, I have about, there's about 400 people in the city clerk's office. And one of the principles that guides us all is that we're dedicated to support all of the participants in local government here at City Hall. And I think Joe or Paul mentioned, sort of the three-legged stool here of our elected officials and city officials within the public service, and then of course the public. Three broad categories of participants and everything that happens here. And our role is a unique role in that a successful day for us is when all three groups can carry out their duties effectively and to advance democratic decision-making and advance democratic rights here in the city. So where that Venn diagram, that little triangle in the middle, that's kind of our space. Okay, next slide. Two ways I like to describe what the clerk does. It's a very, sometimes a hard thing to explain, but sometimes I say we're the mechanics of the machinery of government. And over the next several months or weeks, you're going to learn more about that machinery, how council works, how the public service works, and the interaction with those. And so we like to think of ourselves as being mechanics and keeping everything working. And we'll go to the next slide, and I'll just give you a really quick summary of some of those things. We deliver 20 different services, and just quickly speak about each one. I already mentioned elections. So we run the city's election. We run the school board elections for the time being, anyway, at least if you're reading the news. And we ensure a fair, open, and accessible municipal election every 4 years. The term of office for councillors here is 4 years, and the next general election is on October 26th of next year, and we're already in the process of planning for that. That's like a 2-year project to get that, to deliver that. Now, we are running a by-election in Scarborough Rouge Park, Ward 25, week Monday. So we also conduct by-elections. Tomorrow and Sunday is advance voting. So if you live in Ward 25, I hope you're on the voters list and you're going to consider casting a ballot. The second area is information management. So we're responsible for things like FOI requests, the records centers. I just visited one of our record centers last week. We have 240,000 boxes in that record center, and we have another one with 300,000 boxes. So all of the paper and all of the paper records that are generated within the 43,000 employees, the clerk is responsible for maintaining those records and making sure they're accessible to you or to researchers or people that have the right to access those records. We also provide the support to the mayor, who you met, and members of council. So we provide all of their administrative support, and our goal there is to help members being able to carry out their role. Remember I said we're all about supporting everyone's participation in the local government process, and that's what our team of people in this area do, is they make sure that the members can carry out their duties by being free of any administrative burdens like paying their bills and running their computers and hiring their staff and those types of things. So that's a very particular service we provide. Our secretariat is responsible for the meeting management, so the meetings that go on here in the chamber. We run, plan, stage, and record the proceedings of something like 500 meetings a year of City Council, of its committees, and a wide range of local boards and tribunals. So it's another part of our program. We're also responsible for public appointments. I like to say sometimes we're the largest headhunter on Bay Street because we place over 1,000 people onto the boards and agencies and corporations that Paul displayed. And we screen all those people, we interview them, and support council in making the decisions about which members of the public, which citizens are going to serve the city by sitting on our boards. The last area is protocol, external relations. We're also involved in everything from flags to the mayor's chain of office to Remembrance Day to openings of parks and openings of facilities and that kind of thing that's done through protocol. Okay, quickly here. I also sometimes like to say we're in the rights business, so I'd like to explain that. Next slide, please. We like to say that we ensure that the public has the opportunity to participate in things. So if you think about the right to vote, the right to seek office, the right to contribute to a campaign. If we think about, on the information side, the right to access information through FOI, the right to privacy. One of the other functions is we're also the chief privacy officer for the city. In terms of decision-making, the right to notice, the right to take part in the council meetings and committee meetings, have your say, the right to be able to watch the decision-making in public. It's a cornerstone of our machinery of government. And then on the accountability side, we work to help electors hold their elected representatives accountable by making all this information available, voting records, attendance records, and so forth. Okay, last thing. I just want to really quickly touch, Joe's giving me the sign, but I want to touch really quickly on the types of things that are on the radar of the clerk's office on a regular basis. Talk a little bit about the volume and complexity. Paul talked about how big the city was. I'll just give you one measure, for example. FOI requests, that's when people say, I'd like to see all the records on a particular topic. Last year, we fulfilled 3,350 FOI requests. We're one of the busiest offices in the province and in the country, for that matter, because people want access to information. And the issues that are reported in the media and on social media here generate interest from the public in having access to information. So there's a good idea of a volume issue. Obviously, we're concerned about, as a democratic office, concerned about the increasing polarization and incivility in society. We're seeing that. That could be a whole topic of a whole morning discussion. AI, everybody's talking about AI. There's lots of discussion about AI here at the city. Our little corner of the world is all about AI and privacy. How do we ensure that the city's use of AI doesn't violate the legislative framework for protection of privacy? Anyway, these are some of the things, just want to give you a little smattering. Like, as Paul said, some days it's about issuing a marriage license at a counter, and then other times we're thinking about how do we protect ourselves from disinformation and foreign interference in elections. So the day can be down here or it can be way up here. But that's what the 400 people in the city clerk's office do on a daily basis. And I will turn it back to Joe.
Thank you. If you are going to work at City Hall in any policy area, sooner or later, you're going to bump into a John in the city clerk's office. Thank you, John. Last but not least is Mohammed Surai. Maybe I didn't pronounce that right, you'll correct me, who is the interim General Manager of Social Development. Mohammed.
Good morning, everyone. How you all doing? Good, good. Welcome. So thank you so much, Joe. It's great to be here. My name is Mohammed Shri. I'm the Interim Executive Director for Social Development, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we do and what our work is about. Paul Johnson, our city manager, talked about how one of the key priorities for the city is investing in people and neighborhoods. So the work that the team I lead does that as part of the city's mandate, invest in our neighborhoods, works with some of our marginalized populations in our city, and tries to uplift all communities in our city. And I'll talk a little bit about that work in a second. But I'll talk about my journey here to this role. I came to Canada when I was 4 years old, came to where many communities oftentimes first settle in Flemington, and then grew up in downtown Toronto at Pape & Queen, and then moved out to Scarborough. So I've had a chance to live in different parts of our city. Went away, did my university studies in Montreal at Concordia University, and then did my master's in the UK. Upon returning, I wanted to get involved in local politics. I was excited by the City of Toronto, and I applied to a program called the Urban Fellows Program for recent graduates and master's students. And that program was my introduction to the City of Toronto and the amazing work done by the 43,000 municipal employees of the city. When I tell you that the work done by this city, and the city manager, Paul, just highlighted the examples of just the diversity of the work, I was taken away by it. In my first placement, I had a chance to work in 311 Toronto. And at that time, we were wrestling with the question of the public, how do they submit service requests to 311 Toronto? At that time, service requests were mostly submitted by email or by phone or by text. But a lot of the public was starting to send service requests on this new social media platform called Twitter. And should we accept these service requests? They're including pictures. What should we do with these pictures? There's all this content coming at us. And so my first project was to figure out how to accept those service requests, how to provide notification to the public that we received those service requests, and how do we ensure that our relevant divisions got those requests to action the requests from the public. So exciting journey from then, took on different roles from municipal license standards, our Toronto Office of Partnerships, and really wanted to get into social policy, how we build cities, how do we help address issues around displacement, issues around poverty, issues around marginalization has always been close to my heart. So I naturally landed in the social policy department of our city, and beginning my work in the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Unit, moving on to helping to lead the city's Police and Reform Unit, and then from there, eventually becoming the Interim Executive Director. So that's a little bit about my journey and my experiences here in the City of Toronto. But let's talk about, in the next slide, the work that we do in social development. We're a team of about 330 strong. And as I mentioned, our goal is to invest in communities and populations. And in particular, our goal is to help transform change through stronger neighborhoods, resilient neighborhoods, and equitable communities through different policies, programs, and services. So we deliver that in many different ways. That might be working with our Toronto Youth Council Toronto Youth Cabinet to identify key issues that are affecting our youth, such as unemployment. Unemployment in our city right now is roughly around 20% for youth and hovering closer to 30% for racialized youth. So thinking about how do we address that through working with employers, working with different other orders of government to invest in youth to address those critical issues. We also through our community safety well-being program, address issues affecting Torontonians in terms of interactions with police, and have developed a new transformative crisis response program that responds to calls made to 911 and 211 for mental health-related calls. One of the first non-police civilian-led crisis response programs in the country was started here in the city of Toronto and has responded to over 30,000 calls made to 211 or to 911, where 2 trained civilian mental health clinicians have gone to help support people. This came out of conversations had in this council chamber about how do we help reduce the interactions between police and people experiencing mental health calls, and how do we treat mental health related crisis calls as a public health problem, not a police or enforcement problem. That's the type of work that we do here in social development. We also invest in our neighborhoods. We have a community funding grant. City Council has allocated close to $30 million a year that we distribute to almost over 200 community organizations to do work in across 165 community neighborhoods that we have in our city. They do various things, such as working to provide food bank support to our residents, working to provide youth counseling support, working to engage our seniors in programming, working to provide after-school drop-in spaces. So you name it, across that whole gambit, we help invest in strengthening our communities. Just being mindful of time, if I can have the next slide. So how do you build a city with equity and reconciliation in mind? So I think it's really important for us to first recognize the diversity of our city. Our city is truly a reflection of the world, with over 56% of our city identifying as visible minorities, over 190 different languages being spoken, and over half the population being foreign-born, including myself. So how do we, and how do we ensure that opportunities are provided to engage equally and meaningfully in civic life, socially, economically, and politically? The City of Toronto also has the largest Indigenous population here in Ontario and the 4th largest urban Indigenous population in Canada, with an estimated population of over 70,000 Indigenous people. So how do we meaningfully uphold our legal obligations, our moral responsibilities to Indigenous populations here in our city to have access to and engage with city services and programs? So as part of that, the City Council and the City Public Service has reconciliation and equity deeply embedded as key priorities for how we deliver services and how do we think about our programming. Reconciliation, let's just define terms, is a recognition of and respect of the unique rights of Indigenous people and the promotion of those rights through action on economic, social, and cultural structures which may impede them. Reconciliation places a particular emphasis on the rights to land and resources and is premised on truth, justice, and enabling self-determination. Reconciliation is also a legal obligation of the City of Toronto to ensure that we are providing the treaty rights and respecting the treaty rights, but also ensuring that we were providing access to supports to Indigenous populations. And equity is an environment in which all people share an equal benefit of city services. It necessitates a recognition of differences in systemic barriers and the removal of those barriers through design and implementation of programs and services and policies. I oftentimes like to describe leading equity work as sort of how do we think about accessibility. Many of us, when we came into council chambers today, may have clicked on the automatic door button that opened the door for us. Accessibility features like that are intended to help provide access to this space for people who may have limited mobility issues, but all of us benefit from that infrastructure. All of us also benefit from curb cutouts on our sidewalks that allow people in wheelchairs to be able to easily traverse through our city. But it also becomes easy for us to traverse because of those built-in accessibility features for those of us who may have a wheelchair, for those of us who may have a stroller, for those of us who may be limited mobility for a period of time. So build-in accessibility and build-in equity allows us to even the playing field for everybody, and that's why equity is a critical component of the work that we do. On top of that, in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Section 15, subsection 2, it indicates that as part of the responsibilities of government, that no law precludes the government from working to ameliorate the conditions of disadvantaged individuals or groups, including those that are disadvantaged because of race, nationality or ethnic origin, color, religion, sex, age, or mental or physical disability. So it's upon the responsibility of governments, including the municipal government, federal and provincial, to ensure that as we design our services and our programs, that we consider what are the barriers faced in accessing those by particular populations, and how do we remove those barriers. Next slide, please. So, how do we do that, and what are the different ways that social development engages different divisions across the city to advance that? The city social development works with many of the departments here listed in community and social services, or as we call them, divisions, but we do our work more broadly across all city groups, including our colleagues in police services, TTC, and others. And we build out that work by engaging them in different ways. One is through staff training. I'm working with our staff to do some training around what are the barriers faced by various different equity groups. And another way we do that is building in good data collection. You can't really solve the problem if you can't quantify and demonstrate what are the barriers faced by various different populations. Reporting out on our outcomes is a key priority, and I think as the city manager highlighted, it's important for us to, for the sake of public trust and confidence, to ensure that we can show how we are a well-run government, and so reporting out on our outcomes is really important. And specifically, what are specific population strategies that we develop, such as our Confronting Anti-Black Racism strategy and many others, which I'll talk about in a second. The tools that we do that is through our equity infrastructure, and this includes key things such as staff supports that help support enabling these actions. I talked about the data collection, building out policies and procedures to help advance this work, and crucially through council advisory committees. Council advisory committees are opportunities for elected officials through a public appointments process that John's team leads to put up their hand and participate in various bodies such as the Toronto Accessibility Advisory Committee, the Aboriginal Affairs Committee, the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Advisory Committee, the 2S LGBTQ Advisory Committee. These committees inform, consider, and provide advice to City Council on various key programs and initiatives that are brought to them to discuss, and City Council takes into consideration their feedback as they make decisions. So if I could have the next slide, please. So specifically, the ways that we actually build an equitable city is through three ways. One is people, resources, policies, and systems. So in terms of people, that is you, the public. Invest in and engage in you through community engagement and community development. So we have lots of different ways that we engage the public. One is through the Toronto Youth Cabinet, as I mentioned earlier. We also have community safety networks across our city where different members of residents, businesses, and the public get together and talk about some of the safety challenges in their neighborhoods and ideate and solution together ways to do that. And we fund these groups to do that work together and to try out or to innovate different solutions. We also fund broader community development networks of different neighborhoods and to gather and talk about improvements that they want to do in their neighborhoods. Look at the next slide. So resources. I talked about how we invest over $30 million in over 200 community organizations to do great work across our city, particularly earmarking specific funding available for Indigenous, Black, and racialized community groups to help serve those populations. We've earmarked almost $2 million to help specifically support the Toronto Aboriginal Support Services Council as part of our Indigenous funding framework to do great work in the Indigenous communities. And more importantly, I think we have also worked to try and ensure that City Hall and the decisions and the way that it spends money, because it was shared earlier that our budget's $19 billion, that there's opportunities for vendors, diverse vendors, to be able to bid on city contracts. So the social procurement is a key way that we provide opportunities to diverse populations to gain meaningful business from the city and demonstrate engagement with the city. As an example, as part of social procurement, we've provided in 2024 $10.4 million in opportunities for over 190 diverse vendors. And so that's just one example of the work that's done in that area. Now, the other key piece is around policies and systems change. Now, I talked about the Toronto Community Crisis Service as an example of systems change. If I can have the next slide, please, Chris. Thank you. But this came out of a broader work that was done through the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Action Plan. City Council in 2017 adopted an action plan to address anti-Black racism in our city. This was in response to community protests and calls for change and engagement by the city. The action plan included 80 actions and 22 recommendations, but one of the actions was how do we help reduce interactions between police and Black communities, but more generally, those experiencing mental health crisis calls, and that's part of the inspiration for the work that eventually led to the Toronto Community Crisis Service. Now, there is also broader work that we do around access plan for two-spirit, trans, and non-binary youth. We have prioritized doing work with the 2S LGBTQ youth, given the fact that there are some broader challenges faced by the subpopulation. Data shows that nearly 1/3 of racialized trans youth have reported being physically or sexually assaulted. Nearly twice as many have reported their experiences of violence compared to gender-based and non-racialized diverse youth. And we see that gender diverse youth are disproportionately overrepresented in our city's homelessness population. So having an intentional strategy that brings a whole of government response in terms of how do we think about building shelters, how do we think about employment opportunities, how do we think about engaging community partners to provide support to this vital population is part of the work that we do here in social development. If I can have the next slide, please. Oh, that's the last slide. So I'll just wrap up, because I know we're at time, by just saying that social development is an amazing division that helps, is oftentimes the entryway to many residents and community organizations. My contact details are available on this deck, and I'm happy to chat with any of you, or feel free to meet with any of you to talk about the great work of the City of Toronto, and happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. And yes, these fine folk will be available after class a little bit if you want to have a quick little chat with them. Now's our time for questions. And I spoke before as to how to ask a question. The people in this room can ask via a roving mic that's going around. Who's got the roving mic? Oh, right there. Thank you very much. We, just to prime the pump or get started, if you are online, you can lower left side or right side of the thing, you can ask a question. It's going to be sent to my Gmail account and I'll ask it that way. But just to get the ball rolling, we have about 10 minutes for this. So questions to city staff. So you got to be thinking about it. So I'm going to start. I'm going to start with one, and I'm going to go right to Mohammed, and I'm going to go right for him and ask the tough question. Okay. Are you for real? Like, in the south of the border, public institutions are retreating from diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it seems that you are leading a department that is going in the other direction. Are we not with the times? How is the City of Toronto facing similar kinds of pressures? How's that conversation going in this tumultuous time? Mohammed.
Thanks, Joe. The City of Toronto's motto is diversity is our strength. And we are stronger together when we address key issues and barriers that face other Torontonians. Given some of the broader conversations, I am heartened to see that Torontonians value ensuring that we as a city provide opportunities to all, and we're legally obligated to ensure that barriers are removed to all. So I think the example that I gave earlier about accessibility and design as being the way to think about equity is really important because it helps remove barriers to all. And you don't even think about accessibility every single day when you walk in the door or you drive in a vehicle or you use a particular device. But these accessibility features help improve your life. And removing barriers to some of the communities that have faced marginalization in our city, that have not had opportunities in terms of employment, that have had negative interactions with our police, that have not had opportunities to engage with city services, is a legal responsibility as a City of Toronto, but it's also a moral responsibility that we should consider of how do we want to live with each other and how do we want to make sure that we live in a city where everybody thrives and everybody has the same opportunities.
This gentleman right here, if you want to press the things, stand up, be tall, be proud, ask that question.
Alrighty, so I know that many of us have concerns around Bill 33, which would be cutting funding for university and higher education institutions across the board. How is the city sort of responding to that? Because I know Mayor Chow has done a fantastic job of working with all levels of government to help increase funding for a variety of Toronto services, but that's a bill that seriously affects all of us, not just here in Toronto, but across the board. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's a tough question. It's a provincial issue, Bill 33, but do we have any city impacts that we might be able to speak to? Paul.
Well, we do. First of all, you know, a city of this size and scope, the ability of post-secondary institutions to do what they do very well is critically important to us. So in terms of the bill itself, our direct advocacy, not so much, because we're not responsible for colleges and universities at this level. However, where we get involved is to say, without that pipeline, we don't have access to the workers that are going to drive the economy of the City of Toronto. Plain and simple. And worse than that, businesses will start to go elsewhere, because business follow where human capital can be developed well. We know that. So that's a strength. When we look at the bottom of the letterhead they sent me with CivicLabTO, all of those places, you know how many cities would love to have all those logos at the bottom of something they're doing? So every time we erode that, it's problematic. It also, though, affects our services. You're a huge driver of our transit services. So to be honest, when things happen in places like colleges and universities, the same way if it happens in business or other parts of our community, it affects the city. So will there be a direct debate at the floor of council about this? Probably not as much as maybe it should be, but don't think for a second that we're not concerned that any erosion of post-secondary viability at the City of Toronto has a huge impact on our ability to be successful.
Thank you. Other questions? This gentleman at the back row there. Yes.
I have a question for the city manager. So you mentioned briefly, and I understand, you know, the importance of negotiations between the city and the province. You know, the City of Toronto is a creature of the province, only exists as a result of them. And I think I know a fair bit about like the political side of it, about, you know, Olivia Chow meeting with Doug Ford and having a conversation. You mentioned briefly, though, the civil service side, and I was just wondering what that side is involved with in, like, broadly in negotiations with the province.
Good question.
Sure, it's a great question. And, you know, on a day-by-day basis, because the structures are similar in nature, we work with their structure that they could show on a screen as well from a staff-to-staff basis. My conversations, for instance, happen to be mostly with the deputy minister side of the House, so we can talk, you know, federally, in regular contact, for instance, with the housing deputy minister, with the immigration deputy minister, because those things affect the city very much. But here's a prime example of what you talk about. So in the fall of 2023, I get a phone call from the mayor. Paul, I've just come out of a meeting with the premier. We're striking a group to develop the new deal for Toronto financially. You're our lead for the City of Toronto, and the Deputy Minister of Finance is the lead for the province. At the time, Greg Orenchuk, he got the same call from the Premier, or the Premier's office, saying, Greg, just come out of the meeting with the Mayor, we're tired. So Greg texts me, we've never met, but I think we're going to get to know each other. And at that time, you know, I hadn't met him yet, as I was pretty new as a city manager. So we talk, we create our teams. So we had a team, our negotiating team was the chief financial officer, myself, the chief of staff as well, going to that table, and then we had some of our other folks there. They brought 3 other deputy ministers to sit at the table, and what we did was try and translate what had been shared by the premier and the mayor and put that into a term sheet. We then checked in with the premier and the mayor and said, here's where our term sheet's looking. They gave us some feedback. And that was the political side of it. I don't know, we can go down this. For the province, it was much like, if Toronto gets that, every other municipality is going to want that. So try and make sure they're really specific to Toronto. Okay, good advice, we take that back. Mayor, Paul, we're not doing enough on this. So we do our work. We come out. The end result was pretty close to the final. And then in those last minutes, the mayor and the premier had a few calls that night. I sat there with my fingers crossed. Mayor phones me. She says, we're all good to go. We're signing. I'm signing on it, and we're going to have a press conference, whatever. But the work that happens, so the mayor and the premier absolutely were negotiating the top line stuff. Our job was to actually translate it into something that could be real. How does it fit within their fiscal framework and their programmatic policies? How does it actually benefit the city of Toronto in real ways, not ghost money that actually doesn't help our financial position? And then we had these ones where, and then the last thing I'll say about it is, that announcement, wonderful, $4 billion in capital and operating, everybody's cheering. And then we went around and went, okay, now we got to implement it. We have been working on the Gardner DVP upload weekly, like daily, but meetings weekly since we signed the new deal, and we are still probably 8 months away from finalizing the upload of a highway from the municipality to the province. Incredibly complex work that I can tell you the premier and the mayor have nothing to do with. That's where our expertise comes. So there's a little story of how it actually works in practice.
Great, great. Thank you. Great question. I saw another hand here. Yes, this gentleman in the front row.
Considering how multicultural Toronto is, how exactly do you balance providing equal support to all the cultures in Toronto?
Speak a little slowly and ask again, please. Sorry.
Considering how multicultural Toronto is, how exactly do you balance providing equal support to every culture in Toronto? I'm just curious.
I think that's a Mohammed question.
Yep. Thank you for that question. It's a great question. So the City of Toronto invests over $40 million in different community organizations, 200 diverse community organizations that serve many of our different residents. We also have a different funding pot through our Economic and Development Culture Division that also funds community festivals, art groups. So the city really tries to partner with any community group and diverse communities that come forward and want to partner with the City of Toronto, and we prioritize working with all communities.
Great. I saw someone up in that area. Okay, I'll start. Okay, you've got the mic there, so let's go there.
Thank you so much.
Stand up, be proud.
Okay, thank you. Hi, sorry, I have 3 questions for Paul, but I'm not sure if we're running out of time, so do you want me to just ask?
We are, so
just
ask
one?
your big one, ask your big one.
Okay, sure. What is an unacceptable amount of surplus? Because you mentioned 90 million on 19 billion is like fine.
Okay,
so.
hold on, Paul. Okay, because of time, there was another question over there, so just hold back on the answer, and then I'm going to give each of you a chance to wrap up. There was someone else there that had a question. Okay, then there was someone over there.
Thank you. I would like to ask, does the city council or do you guys have a plan to make sure the TTC has a strong enough budget so that it doesn't have to cut any of its services next year? B, modernize the streetcar network to make sure that it's actually fast, frequent, and reliable instead of being horribly stuck in traffic, overcrowded, and having terrible stop designs as well as outdated equipment like single-point switches. And C, since you have such a strong commitment to the Gardner, and I'm not against that, do you also have as strong of a commitment, or at least somewhat strong of a commitment, to eliminate all slow zones on the subway and make sure our maintenance is up to date? These are 3 huge concerns I have as a daily transit rider, and I'm sure many people in this room and in this city feel the same way. So I want to know what you guys think.
Great, thank you. And there was a gentlewoman up here on the 3rd row. She doesn't need a mic. Sorry, she doesn't need that mic. Stand up, be proud.
I was just wondering, when you have a limited budget, this is from Mohammed, how you choose which areas of the city or which needs and which services are prioritized.
Great question, strategic question. One last person that burning question right here. Stand up.
Hi, thank you. My question is, what pathways or steps would you recommend to those of us in this room to end up in your positions in the future and make a lasting impact on the city?
Great question. The rubber hits the road. Okay, so 4 questions. I'm going to give, maybe I'm going to start. John, are you open to biting off one of them? Anyone? Maybe the last one?
Sure. Wow. Well, as I said earlier, there are so many opportunities here that, trying to identify positions that you're interested in, it becomes a pathway to other positions. There's all kinds of recruiting efforts that take place. Getting involved in programs or advisory committees or initiatives on a volunteer basis. These are all pathways to identify opportunities in the public service. There are so many entry points. It's hard to give you one, sort of one suggestion, but I'm happy to talk about that afterwards if you want to explore that a little more.
Paul or Mohammed?
So acceptable surplus, our CFO talks, about finding the right percentage that we would want to have in a reserve to deal with the ups and downs that go, maybe around 1% of our overall budget. That might get you into the $250 million range, around there. I'll tell you when we really needed it was those early days of the pandemic. So we closed all our community centers, so we have zero revenue coming in from community centers. Our transit ridership plummets. All of those things that we have to rely on, that's why you build a reserve. So the surplus is neither here nor there. We want our surpluses to be pretty close to zero, but we'd like to build a reserve that would allow us to be able to smooth out some of those unexpected issues that hit. The pandemic's an extreme example, but we could hit some other things that happen that need us to worry about that. On transit, so just so we're real clear, when I talk about the Gardner upload and the good news around that, it's really about capital funding, which ties into transit. The reason we didn't want to keep the Gardner and the DVP as a city asset is it is the single largest impact on our capital program from an asset perspective until we struck that deal. And by striking that deal and having the province take it on and upload that, instantly freed up $1.9 billion in capital funding that we could go to fix things. So we dedicated it over 4 or 5 areas, one of which was transit, to do what we call state of good repair, which is essentially keeping things in working order. So it's not going for new, it's going to actually fix the things that lead to the slowdowns, that lead to the signal problems, that lead to your journey not being consistent because we're fixing the things as we go. So that's one thing. Is there a commitment to more reliable? You heard the mayor, absolutely. We've hired a new CEO. He comes with a tremendous operational background out of New York and London in the UK. And when I talk to Mandeep regularly, he's got a plan to get us there. It's going to take a little while. So when we talk about the Gardner, I just want to be real clear. I didn't use that as an example to talk about, I love highways. It is a highway. It's an expressway that's going to be here for a while. The best news in the world is we were able to offload that capital responsibility and put that back into community facilities, housing, transit, our own corporate facilities, and instantly free up $2 billion worth to do that. That to me is good deal making on behalf of the city. I'm not patting myself on the back, but it's just good deal making, and we need to be there with it. So a few things around there, and I would just say, get into the municipality somehow if you think this might be the right place, and then just say yes to opportunities as they come your way. You look at the resume of someone like John and myself, like, it's all over the place because there's an opportunity here. When I speak to younger children about working at the city, because they don't really grasp it, I go, who likes sports? I love sports. Well, you can come and be a sports specialist within our recreation services. Holy cow. They never thought they could actually translate love of sport into actual jobs. That's what we do at the city. People want to be engineers, nurses, the whole 9 yards. We deliver it all. So there's great opportunities for folks and great movement opportunities once you get in here.
Anything to add, Mohammed?
I'll just say, Joe, some days you can have my job for free. I'll turn it over to you at any time. Just give me a shout because I need a break every once in a while, and you can have it.
With the wage as well, right? Mohammed.
Just quickly on that question around how do we make priorities. So one of the ways we make priorities is through our neighborhood improvement areas, which is an assessment of different neighborhoods in our city. What are some of the challenges in those neighborhoods? Some of the data from the census, and what are some of the barriers faced by those residents? And then on top of that is the council mandated priorities around our obligations under reconciliation and the priorities of equity. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we're almost at the end. We are now in the position to give some thank yous. We have two wonderful students, Jacob Guardielli and Vladimir Sebastian from the wonderful York University, to give a thank you. Over to you, maybe Jacob to start. Okay, let's press the button.
Hello, my name is Jacob Guardielli. I'm a York University student, and I want to express my deep gratitude to all of you guys taking time out of your very busy day, I'm sure, to go and talk about your experiences and all the challenges that come around your job. One major thing that I took away from today was just how diverse your guys' work really is. There's a lot of things that go into what you guys do, and I'm very happy that you guys explained that to me. One last thing, on behalf of myself and all the rest of the York University students here today, I sincerely thank you for your time, effort, and knowledge that you've shared with us.
Thank you. Vladimir.
Alrighty, good morning, everybody. My name is Vladimir Sebastian. I'm also representing York University, just like Jacob. I would sincerely like to express my sincere appreciation for providing all of us with this very unique experience for all the students in City Hall. And personally, in my opinion, I think that learning about skills in the workplace, especially about the various roles of various professions, and of course obtaining knowledge is much better on the work field than in pretty much a typical classroom. And typical classroom is also good, but when you're in the workspace, you just feel that you just obtain more knowledge in the workplace. And on behalf of myself, all the York students, and pretty much everybody in this room, I'd like to thank you for giving us this amazing opportunity to share your knowledge, your opinions, and providing your time with us. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Okay, and that brings today's event to a close, but two more things. Next week, we're back here at City Hall, so don't forget that. Also next week, after the session, two of our wonderful 8 professors, Dr. Sarah Diamond and Professor Marcin Kedzior from Humber College and from OCAD, will lead an architectural tour after the class, so you might want to schedule yourself in such a way to provide 60 to 90 minutes. They will be touring some of the art installations that are around City Hall, an excellent tour. They've given it before, and you'll learn lots if you're into art and urban spaces. Lastly, we do have, for those students that did not yet fill out the survey, we have the video that we're going to show just as we're finishing the class. And we would urge you, we would plead with you to try to find some time to basically fill that out. It is very important for this class that is very innovative, that we understand it, that we measure it, and that we can then make recommendations to our colleges, universities, and the civil service on some of the things that we have learned through this process. And the last thing I'll say is, for the 4 universities, OCAD, University of Toronto, TMU, York University, you all have written assignments where you have to do something with someone from another academic institution. How are you going to meet them? You're going to meet them after class. Just go up these stairs, up the stairs there, and at the back, and there'll be a little bit of a reception. And I think Professor Aditi from, Pamela is going to facilitate that piece from TMU. So we're going to show the video, and in the meantime, once again, thanks Mohammed, thanks Paul, thanks John for your excellent presentations. But just hang in there while the video is shown. I trust it's. Oh, there we go. It works.
Hi everyone, my name is Darshi Jayavir and I am a third-year PhD student in geography at the University of Toronto. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. So to introduce myself, I'm the graduate researcher for CivicLabTO, and we're excited to launch a cool project with your help. In this role, I've been working closely with your professors to create a survey to improve the course for future cohorts and ensure others have this opportunity as well. Not only will your responses help improve the course, but we also aim to write a journal article and report about the extent to which classes like this affect civic engagement. So in order to do this, we really need your help. I'll be administering 2 surveys for this project. One, which you will receive the link for momentarily, and a second follow-up survey, which will be released at the end of the course in November. I know that surveys can feel boring, but hopefully this one will give you an opportunity to reflect on what you're about to learn. To be very, very clear, this survey is voluntary and has no impact on your grades, and your professors will have no access to your responses until after the course is complete and your grades are submitted. I'll be the one administering the survey and managing the data throughout the entire project. Your responses will be kept confidential while I receive both sets of survey results. In the survey, I do ask for your school-affiliated email addresses. This information is really important because I'll be using this to link your responses from survey number 1 to survey number 2. The email addresses will also be used to directly send the link for survey number 2 in November. So please make sure that there are no typos and that you use the same email address for survey number 2. Once the second survey has been completed, I'll delete your email addresses. After this video ends, a QR code will be on the screen for you to scan and complete the survey. Your professors will also be posting an announcement through your course platforms as well. You'll have until 5 p.m. on September 26 to complete the survey. We would really appreciate your participation, and future students would benefit from your involvement. Please feel free to ask me questions by email as well. Have a great semester.
There's the survey link for those who haven't already filled it out. Have a great weekend, everyone, and a great rest of the day. Thank you.